G'day gamers, Aussie Wargamer here in Moree, Australia, and welcome back to me channel. Well, it's been a minute since the face has been on the old YouTubes, but I'm back and ready for another year of bonza tabletop content. Well, on this episode, I want to have a chat about who I am, what I want to achieve with the channel, what I'm working on at the moment, and I've got a painting tutorial for you showing one of the ways I do corroded metal. So let's get to it, eh? So, for those that don't know me, I'm the Aussie Wargamer. I love tabletop games from Warhammer to Gaslands to RPGs to board games. Miniature modelling is my first love, like Arcan to me Nagash, but I'm a maker at heart and love building all sorts of things from terrain to woodworking to electronics. Last January, after nearly 2 years making videos, I decided to take a year off. I was getting burnt out by both the hobby and the channel and needed a break like corn needs skulls. So I'm going to do things a little differently this time around. Firstly, I only plan on posting every second week, but there may be some occasional content in between episodes. Secondly, I'm making videos about what I want to make videos about. Expect stuff on Age of Sigmar, 40k, Gaslands, board games, Dungeons and Dragons, stuff I'm keen on sharing and talking about. I'll be starting my Road to CanCon series pretty early this year, as I don't want to leave it until the last 3 months to do the army like the chump I was the past couple of years. Well, I feel like I'm on the verge of a painting level up, so I want to give the army the time that it needs. More on that in future episodes. Well, I'm going to try to include some kind of hobby tutorial in every episode as well. Usually it'll just be me filming something I'm already doing, and chances are there'll be better tutorials out there, but maybe I can bring a different perspective. I'm just hoping that I can help you guys, help you learn a little bit on the way. And I'm also completely open to suggestions for content. So if there's something you want me to make, don't hesitate to let me know. Speaking of making stuff, I've been working on a few projects at the moment. The biggest one is a 40k Astra Militarum army. I've wanted to do Imperial Guard for a while now, as well as a jungle-themed army, so I thought this was the perfect combination of the two. I've been right into Jamie Hewlett and Alan Martin's Tank Girl comics, as well as the art of Jim Mahfood, so I decided to throw in a punk aesthetic as well. I've been having a lot of fun playing around with practical effects, using cotton wool for smoke and fire, LEDs in the big flamer, and lots of weathering and effects like mud splatters and slime and oil stains, heat discoloration, and the like. I'll probably do some tutorials in the coming weeks on those things. I've been using bits from both Katakan and Cadian troops, as well as the Coyote crew from Raging Heroes, and a bunch of Seraphon bits. I've got some dinosaurs I want to use, including a Basilisk rocket launcher mounted on the back of a Bastillodon, and some cold ones I'm thinking of using for Rough Riders. I really want the army to look coherent, but diverse. I'm painting a variety of skin tones and will have equal parts men and women miniatures. I want to get across the idea that this is a motley crew of individuals with different looks, personalities, skills and desires. I've also started working on my Underworld's warbands. I have all Season 1 and some of Season 2, but have never painted them up. I'm starting with Steelheart's Champions, and I wanted to make them look like they've been trapped in Shadespire for so long that their Sigmarite armor is corroding and they've had to scrounge for weapons and bits to replace them. So here's how I'm doing the corroded metal. So first up, I'm using a Red Sable size 2 brush from JSart, which is an Australian company. Cost me $12. It's my absolute favourite brush at the moment. And I put on some Typhus Corrosion from Citadel because I really want some good texture, some gritty, grainy texture. But I'm only going to put it in the crevices. So I'm just doing the chest, the breastplate, and a little bit under the breastplate for this video. So I'm going to just put that typhus corrosion into all those little crevices and stuff, and I really want to get a bunch of texture up in there. Now I'm going to hit it with some Vallejo metal color burnt iron. This is a really nice dark metal color, and I'm going to go from the breastplate and push up into the typhus corrosion. Now you've really got to make sure your typhus corrosion is dry, or any texture that you're putting on is completely dry before you do this, because you don't want to chip that texture off. So yeah, I'm just taking that metal, pushing it up. I don't want the color of the typhus corrosion, I want it to be all metal. That's why I'm starting with the typhus corrosion and painting back over the top of it. So I can get a fairly consistent metallic color. Now I'm going to wash it with Army Painter Strong Tone. I really like Army Painter's washes. For layers, I generally use Vallejo, Citadel, getting into scale 75. I do use some Army Painter layer paints, but their washes I think are fantastic. So this is Strong Tone. This is the equivalent of Agrac's Earthshade, and just pushing that all into the recesses and glazing over the flat areas with it. Once that's dry, I'm going to hit it with some Vallejo metal color dark aluminium. This is lighter than the burnt iron, and I'm going to go over the breastplates and do some edge highlighting and just pick out some details with this particular paint. So yeah, just pushing it up and back down into that texture, rather than brushing like straight over the top of it. Just creates a thinner layer over the texture, but still gives it a nice good bit of color. Just want to be careful with it. Next up, I'm going to use Army Painter Fur Brown. Now this is a nice rich red brown, which will serve as the base for my for a little bit of rust. I'm watering it down about 50%. I want it to be nice and thin because I want it to be dark. I don't want anything here to be too bright. So when I eventually do put the rust on, it's going to be a bit darker as well. And I just want to push it again into the recesses here. I'm stippling it in, and then any excess I'm just wiping away with my finger. So it'll all go in the crevices and not on those flat areas that I want to keep a solid metal color. Just pushing it into the recesses there. Bit of stippling. You can see a little bit of color there, but it's not too much. It's still quite dark. I do apologize for the focus. I'm still setting this rig up, so I need to work out how to hold focus on a miniature a little bit better, and yeah, we'll improve together, guys. But as I said, I am hoping to get one of these done in each video I post. So just stippling in this fur brown right into the crevices, and as I said, it's a wash, so it's not going to be too bright. I want it to blend in with the dark metals underneath. Now I'm going to hit it with the rust. This is Army Painter Dry Rust. It's a drier paint. It's a little bit darker than Riser Rust, which is why I like it. I don't want this rust to be too bright. Now I'm just stippling it on just with the tip of my brush, putting little points, little dots onto certain areas and in groups, in little clusters. I don't want it to be too much. I want a few little clusters here and there, and I want it to be unnatural in terms of where it goes, so as random as possible. I just put a little bit too much here, so I'm picking it back up with a dry, slightly damp brush. Now I'm going to use Vallejo metal color dull aluminium. This is a much brighter version of dark aluminium. It's a very, very bright sort of silvery color. and I'm just going to dot it along the edges here rather than doing a straight line, so it looks like it's kind of jagged and inconsistent. And I'm going to pick out a few bits of the rust texture and the rivets on the armor. And then I'm just going to put in here, I'm just going to put in some scratches, some scratch marks on the breastplates. There's just a bit of micro detail here. You can't really see it unless you're actually looking like close up at the miniature, but it does give it a bit more texture and a bit more variety. It's a nice way of breaking up a flat surface with a little bit of texture that's not particularly noticeable and doesn't stand out that much. Then I'm going to hit it with some dark tones. So this is the equivalent of null oil, I guess, and I'm essentially just blacklining too much there, so just wipe it off. I'm using a fine detail brush here. I just want, essentially I'm blacklining in between each of the plates. It's not really blacklining, but I'm just creating a deeper shadow there to separate each of the plates and each of the areas, and really push that into the deepest shadows to push that contrast as far as it'll go. And then I'm going to hit the whole thing with a little bit more Army Painter Strong Tone. Now I'm going to glaze it, so you'll see here I wipe a little bit off on my thumb there. That's partly to test the consistency, but also to wipe off some excess because I don't want too much on the brush, just want a little bit on the brush. Now I don't really mind if it's more of a wash than a glaze, but as long as I get the colour over the entire thing, I don't mind it washing into the crevices a little bit more than the flat areas and that kind of stuff. I don't mind if it's a little bit inconsistent, because that's the whole point. And then finally, I'm going to hit it with some Ultra Matte varnish. This is from AK Interactive. I'll put 2 coats of this on because I really want to take that shine off. It's old corroded metal, so it's not going to be particularly shiny. So I want to dull it right down with this matte varnish, and I'll do 2 coats of it. Well, that's the episode. You people are flippin' amazing for tuning into the show. As always, thanks for watching. If you got something out of the episode, it'd be bonza if you liked the video. Well, let me know what you want me to cover in future episodes in the comments, and subscribe if you want to hear more of my voice. Catch us later.